Button. Do you hit the button? We live.
You hit the button.
Welcome back, everybody. Another Tuesday night chat with the Muskrat, Mr. Creole Catfishing, and we got Mr. Zach River Warrior. And we had Mr. Zach River.
We had him. We had him. Like, I don't know where. There he is. Okay, we have him again. He's back now.
There we go.
I turned some lights on.
There we go.
There we go.
Yeah, so we can see
welcome back, everybody.
Well.
And tonight we're going to, so we did say that we had a guest lined up for you guys this week. We had planned on having Brad from Gunnersville Bait Company on. Unfortunately, Brad has had a family emergency.
Yes.
Some business at home to take care of. And so we're going to reschedule him, and we'll get him back on here as soon as he's ready. So we decided to go ahead and proceed with what we're now calling Structure School. And if you guys remember a couple of weeks ago, we started talking about wing dikes, and you know, a lot of questions, great conversations happening in chat last couple of weeks ago with that conversation. And so we decided to move on with Structure School and talk about one of our favorites, and that's fishing dams and hydros.
Yes.
There are a lot of great things about fishing dams and hydros, and there's some dangerous things about fishing dams and hydros. So tonight we're going to kind of talk about both sides, you know, approaching locks and dams, how to read the water, what to look for as far as buoy markers, restricted zones, and things like that. And then we're going to dig into the nitty gritty as far as where do you want to fish? If you're approaching a dam, you're in the safe zone. Where should you be? Where should your boat be? What method should you be using? And what tactics are possible for you? So, but before we get started, we'll say hello to a couple folks right here. It says Dale Hayslip was the first in the house tonight. So welcome, Dale. Thanks for joining in. Big supporter, always here to help out. Super Smurf, Eric Fishing out yesterday. If you guys got to tune in for a little bit, we went live yesterday. Happy birthday again to Eric. Yesterday was his 21st birthday, and we tried to put him on 21 fish. We got close. We got close, but
Eric's
21.
I think the highlight of his day was catching.
This is too much.
No, he's not 21.
I was about to say, like, Jesus.
Too much light. It's too direct.
Well, he did catch some fish yesterday. I think his highlight was he caught 2 fish at the same time on the same rig using one of the Patriot James's ghost floats. So
that Kentucky rig.
Yeah, on a Kentucky rig. That's right. 922 Crappie Barbecues in the house. Anthony Yak Shore, what's going on? Brian Big Wrench. Miss Becca's in the house, who helped us all day yesterday keep things straight.
Hi, Becca.
Jimmy James Bailey, what's going on? We got a Facebook user in the house as well. Thanks for tuning in from Facebook World. Appreciate you. Crappie Dave Fish On's in the house. Annette Catfishing. Jerry Parker. Parker got a good one this week. I seen that. 50-something pounds fishing with his daughter.
Yes, he did.
PR, that's the boys' mother. Said, I want to thank you for taking the boys out for Eric's birthday yesterday. It's my pleasure. I'm glad we finally got to get on the water. There's Mr. David Smith. Chucky's in the house. War Pig. Mr. Bill Hopper's in the house. Donald Knight Sr. What's up, buddy? Thanks for stopping in. We got Richard Cluck from Fishing and Freedom and Lance McCouguy. I got caught up. I got to the bottom. That's fast. That's fast.
They're going to be pouring in, and we love it when that happens. Look, there you go. Chris Hooks and Hammocks.
There we go. Chris and Hooks and Hammocks.
Chris.
So what is it about fishing dams that everybody goes crazy for, right? Like, why does everybody want to go fish dams? Why? Well, we all know that at the dam, there are catfish the size of Volkswagens, like this one here. You know, that these giant monster fish lay at the bottom of all these dams. The divers are scared to go down there. They swore they'd never go back. But in reality, in my opinion, the reason that dams are so popular, and one of the reasons we love them so much, is there's just so much activity at a dam, so much going on. Yes. Your bait fish want to be there, and your fish want to be there to eat. Because let's face it, for the most part, the fish they don't live at dams. They move there, they eat, and they move out.
Yes.
So while you're at a dam, they should be actively feeding. If the fish are there, they should be actively feeding. And that kind of takes out of the guesswork and half of the time of trying to find active fish. While at a dam, theoretically, if they're there, they're active because that's the only reason they're there.
Yeah,
there's
100%.
You know, the big one of the big reasons there's a lot of activity there is it's, you know, that's oxygenated water for one thing.
Yeah,
it's got moving water. It's, you know, it's adding oxygen to it. So all your bait fish that, you know, like skipjack and so forth, they love that kind of, well, the skipjack are there to eat something else, of course, but that's one big factor. And the other big factor is there is injured fish coming through the dam. They get injured going through the dam and going through a lot of these turbines that we have at most of the dams. So there's a super easy food source there. It's ground up food, you know, and everything can, you know, eat on that. The catfish, the little fish, and all that kind of stuff. So
it is the Chinese buffet of catfishing.
That's right. That is right.
There you go. The Chinese buffet. We've got it going on.
And for a lot of areas, you know, I know y'all have that a lot on the Ohio River, and it's even a thing for us too. Sometimes that's the one area you have of consistent year-round current is at that dam. There's other areas you may or may not have current, but at that dam or at that hydro, it's a consistent place to at least find running water.
Yeah. Yep. Around here, there's times where that is the only moving water. You get a couple miles down, you know, downriver from the dam and you're out. There's no flow.
Yeah, 100%.
Zach and I talked about this earlier today. You know, we like to travel, right? As much as we can get out and do it. And we love to hit the dams first. And the reason is because the dams, you know, they're not all the same, but they have a lot of the same characteristics. So no matter where you fish, you can go. I seen mom and dad tune in there. I said, tune in. You could go to a dam and quickly kind of figure out, you know, how you want to set up on it, where to be fishing at, whether you know, our favorite method obviously is bumping. But the dams are so easy for us to key in on because they're all similar in a lot of fashion.
Yeah, there's similarities. Every dam we go to, you know, they got running water and they've got seams, they've got, you know, all these handful of things that they all have. Now we go down on the Tennessee River, and before we get started on all this stuff, we probably should talk about the safety issue. Dams is probably the most dangerous spot that you can get close to out on the river. That is probably the worst. That's the most dangerous. So that being said, you need to use the most caution at the dam of any other place out on the river, probably. Now, you get down to Wheeler and you get out in some of those big open areas, and whenever the wind can make things even more dangerous. But, you know, that's an exception. So, you know, that's one place where, you know, don't be the tough guy and think, oh, yeah, I don't need to wear a life jacket, because let me tell you, we wear life jackets when we get up close to these dams and get in those dangerous places because, man, it's things can turn south so quick up there. And, you know, you can go up there 50 times and not have a problem. And then you go up there and your trolling motor quits or, you know, something silly. It's things you don't even think about. You know, we've seen people go up there and try to anchor up close to the dam. That is so, man, you talk about dangerous.
You got to respect the water. I mean, that's what it really comes down to.
When you go onto your Navionics and some of these, they'll show you also where they'll give you red zones. They'll have a red line on there. You can go in there and look, and you can see right where you are not supposed to go.
That's right.
Now, a lot of the dams, they'll have markers out there. They have buoys, and you know, I like those better because there's no ifs, ands, or buts.
That's right.
I know exactly where I can go. Now we started going to the Tennessee River, and believe it or not, they don't care how close. Man, you go up there wherever you want to go, and it's like they don't enforce anything. So those red marks on there don't really mean a whole lot on most of the Tennessee River areas. But you go on the High River, I mean, you can ask Roger. He got a ticket one time because there was a misunderstanding about where the line was and so forth. He got a ticket for it. And, you know, that's probably enough for a whole show right there explaining all that stuff. But Things like that can't happen. But the bottom line is, you are responsible for your safety when you get up in those places. So be careful. I mean, be crazy careful. You don't just because you see somebody up in a certain area doing a certain thing, it could be very dangerous to go up there and try to do the exact same thing. Because when I first started going up to the dam, I seen guys out there doing certain things, and I thought, well, I can go out and do that. And I went out there and threw an anchor, and guess what? They weren't throwing an anchor; they were using their trolling motor to hold them in, spot locking. And I didn't realize that. And you know what ended up happening? I got spun completely around in the middle of the river. I'm going the wrong direction. It's like, how in the world could that happen? That's the kind of things that can happen. And you know what happens wherever you get water going against the back of your boat, it will sink you. And that's what can happen in a heartbeat.
Very fast.
Up there close to up there close to that dam, the water's not all going one direction always.
Yeah.
It won't go the same direction all the time. At least not at our dams. It'll change directions and spin and do all kinds of crazy stuff. Now, that's why we like to fish it, because the fish love to get in there and look for little morsels and hurt fish and stuff. And there's a lot of really good fishing up in there, but you got to do it right. So you don't just kind of ease into it. Get closer and closer until you get your confidence level build up and get some experience and be ready for anything. Roger and I, we went up there before, and here we had all these lines out and stuff, and we're just having a big time, and all of a sudden it was like, something's not right. My trolling motor quit, and we had no clue. Before you knew it, we had 6 or 7 rods snagged and going the wrong direction and everything. And we just we had to start cutting lines, man, because that was that's what we had to do.
It's the only way to save it.
That just gives you a good example of what can happen up there. So you got to use the utmost safety, keep safety in mind at the utmost, because it can get crazy.
A good habit to get into, and this is fast current in general, but especially at a dam. A good habit to get into, you have to constantly keep one eye on the bank at all times, because if you're constantly eyeballing that bank, that will tell you a lot about what your boat is doing and how fast it's doing it long before you realize it on a graph or a trolling motor remote or anything like that. If you constantly are eyeballing that bank and looking to see where you are, how fast you're moving back, if you're moving back, if you're moving forward, if you're getting closer or further away, if you're turning sideways, that eyeball on the bank is such a big thing of keeping you out of trouble. A big habit that we've got into when approaching in that fast water, like I'll approach it and I'll be scanning looking for fish. The big mistake I've seen people make, especially in shorter side boats, when they decide they've gone far enough, or in our case, we don't have buoys across telling us where the restriction zone is. There's big signs up on the bank. You just have to know, you have to look for them and know where they are. They'll get up in there, and the first thing they'll do, they'll want to turn that boat hard over in that fast, rough water. And man, that is such a dangerous thing to do. Many times we'll creep up nose into the current, and if we decide we don't want to be there, I'll just slowly throttle back and let that current push me back just a little bit. And I'm eyeballing the bank. And then when I'm out of the rough water, then I pick my spot on where I'm going to turn my boat. I don't just turn that boat in that rough water. It's not a good idea.
Yeah, because like I said earlier, our boats are not made for the water to go against the back of them. They're made to get the water from the front. So that's why that's so dangerous, because you can fill that boat with water so fast. It can be a dangerous place. But is that enough said on the safety issue?
I think we made our point, but it's a great point.
I'm sure different little small aspects of it will come up as we're talking about, let's say, particular fishing situations, But 100%.
Now, I don't know if you want to get into some of the tactics that we do, or
I was talking about. People always ask, how do we go up there and sit in that crazy water? Like they all try it and it doesn't work. And I've tried to explain what we're doing, but Zach, if you can kind of give everybody
at our dam. Now, we've been to other dams and done the exact same thing.
Right.
You've got most of the dams nowadays. they've got a hydro, power generation part, and then they've got, like the water going through the lock, not the locks, but the dam part. And, most of the rivers that we deal with, in the summertime, they don't have anything going through the regular part of the dam. It's just going through the hydros. But, in the springtime and stuff, you got water coming through both. And believe it or not, guess what? It's not the same speed. That water going through the dam over there, it will be a different speed than what's coming out of the hydros, at least, when you get back away from it. So you've got basically two rivers out there, two rivers coming together at the dam. And where those two things of current come together, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be a V shape of some sort. But where they come together, you can look up there and you can see slick spots. It just looks like flat water, slick. And those are actually little whirlpool things almost. It's about what it amounts to. That, believe it or not, that's where there's a lot of fish right there. And I've done it on the Mississippi, Tennessee, Ohio River, and other places. That's where we gravitate to that current seam. Once again, you hear we talk about current seams all the time, but that current seam right there, man, that's the place. Now, getting set up, sometimes no matter what you do, you ain't gonna be able to get set up on it. There are times, and it don't take much of a change of they're starting to let more water out of one or the other, and all of a sudden everything. Roger did a live one night, and he had a good example of what can happen. He's up there set up fishing, and they changed how much water was going through the dam, just a little bit, changed everything. You couldn't even sit there. Now that's where these big trolling motors that we like to use now, these 36 volt, 112 pound, thrust and all that stuff. That's where those things start making money for you right there. Yeah. Because you get up in those places, those big old trolling motors that you don't really need for most applications. 9 times out of 10, you don't even need that extra thrust. But when you get up in there, that's where you're going to love them things, because you can spot lock in that stuff, and they'll go from 0 to 10, on their own. That's how much they change sometimes. It'll go from nothing to 10. And, it costs a lot of money for that equipment, but, that allows us to go up there and do a lot of things that you can't do, easily. That's one thing. I mean, you can't go up there and anchor in those places up close to the dam, not safely.
Not safely. No.
You just 100%. Can't do it.
Yeah.
Now,
and as far as your trolling motor goes, it's best to kind of, I've had to get in that habit. It's best to understand exactly what your trolling motor sounds like when it's wide open.
Yeah.
You better recognize that sound, because especially with us bumping, okay, our back is turned. I can't see anything up in the front of that boat. I don't know what's going on. But or if we're trying to spot lock and trying to anchor fish, and I'm trying to get things set up, like Zach said, it'll go from 2 to 10, 2 to 10, 2 to 10. Then all of a sudden, hearing that trolling motor, okay, why has it been wide open for the past 30 seconds? Then I eyeball the bank. Guess what? We're slipping back. It's not holding us anymore. Like,
and eventually it will kick off too, because it can't. It will. It'll only do that for so long. We've had that happen, of course, and all that stuff. Now, that's more of a anchor situation when we're doing that. We're looking for that V. We're looking for the slick spots. We're looking for that current seam. It's like we do, especially in high water and fast water on down river. We do the exact same thing. That we're fishing basically that current seam, because it's a little bit slower. That's where the bait's probably going to be, and the chunks of stuff that got damaged coming through the dam and all that stuff. There's a lot of life right there. And a lot of times now, some of these dams we go to, they allow you to go on the Tennessee River in particular. I mean, you can go right up to the hydros. I mean, there's boats that go inside the hydro exhausts and fish right there. And man, it is just loaded with bait up there. And of course, if you got a lot of bait, you're going to have a lot of big fish up there too. I think Stacy Gaston, he talked about it when he was on here the other night. That's one of his favorite places to go. Is right up to those hydros. Really, really close. So we've seen him there when we were down at Wilson, and you can catch fish up there. There's giant fish up in that stuff, and sometimes you get them.
What's up, Kevin
now,
Waters?
The other thing that we really prefer to do, just because it's so exciting and all that stuff, which is, you know, why we go fishing all the time anyways, for the excitement and the adrenaline, is we like to go up there and go bumping up close to the dam.
Yeah.
And you know, like Roger was talking about at the beginning, a lot of times that is the only place on the river that has any current at all, is right at the dam. So, you know, we like to go all these dams and go up there to just as close to that dam as we can get to, where there's still, you get too close to the dam, those hydros, there isn't any flow a lot of times. Yep. Like at Gunnersville, for example, you can't go, if you go too far, you're just going to sit there. So yep. we know exactly where to go to. I mean, we got her down, buddy. And
yeah,
once
my dam is like that too.
So, you know, you look at your track that you make every time on every pass, and that's what we glance up there at our graph and go, all right, we're almost there. There it is. That's the spot. And then we start from those, you know. But when you're doing the bumping thing, we aren't looking for those current seams so much anymore. We are actually looking for where the bottom's not straight, where you've got some ups and downs and rocks and stuff like that. And abracadabra, that's where the big old giant fish are at, seems like, most of the time. You know, you find a spot, there's a place right below Wheeler Dam that Doc and I and Roger, we've all bumped it a bunch. There's this one little area right there. It's very, very turbulent, and we get hung up there all the time. And Doc, it was just me and Doc one day. I'll tell this one fishing story, and we'll get back to it. So we're going back through there, and man, Doc and I absolutely had probably the best 2-hour fishing spree I've ever seen in my life. We weren't catching any little ones. It was all big stuff. You know, like I think we caught 1 20-pounder, and everything else was bigger. So we were, I mean, just about wore completely out, because it was just multiple fish. As soon as you get one fish off, we catch another big one. And so it was almost lunchtime. We were both wore out. And I said, Doc, let's just make one more pass, and then we'll go back there and anchor up somewhere and fix lunch. And he said, okay, one more pass. And we got to that spot where we get hung up all the time. The reason we got hung up is there's a great big rock there, and right behind the great big rock is a big drop off. And where there's a drop off, there's turbulence, and you know, it's doing all this crazy stuff with your bait. We're going back through there, and I figured out that I just keep things lifted up a little higher than normal when I got to that spot, and I done that, and I didn't get hung up. I thought, all right, I didn't get hung up, and then it was on. There was a great big giant fish right back in there. So that one more pass, I caught me a 60-pounder. So, but that's what I was getting at, was all this crazy stuff down through there. That's where these big fish, they'll just go in there and hang out and wait for something to come, just drop right in their face. You know, so if you can get your baits down through there, use a heavier weight on your rig and all that stuff, you can just work your bait right down in those places down, you know, close to that dam. But like Roger said, they're usually up in real close like that for a reason. They're up in there to eat. They go up in there and eat, and then they go somewhere else and hang out and digest their food and stuff. So most of the fish you see up in there, they're pretty active usually. So
a couple comments real quick here in chat. Becca asked, what kind of flow or power would you say is a start of more of a safety issue? And I'll give my 2 cents, and I'll let you guys answer. To me, that is all dependent on the person and the boat. What you're comfortable with is where the safety issue lies. If you're out of your comfort zone, regardless of your boat size, regardless of your equipment or gear, then your safety is at risk if you're not comfortable. If you're overconfident, but you've got a vessel that's not equipped to handle that type of water. So there's so many variables as far as, is there a certain number PSI or flow that starts throwing up warning signs? And there's really not. It's all dependent on the experience of the captain and the ability of the vessel. So it's a huge range of what is acceptable and safe and what is no longer acceptable and safe.
I mean, we're out in a boat a lot. You know, we go out and we're on boats all the time and fishing and all that stuff. But I still have that feeling sometimes when we get up in a situation. It's like, I don't feel safe here. You know, and you know what? If I have that feeling, I don't have the confidence to be there. I have no business being there at that point. You need to get out of there. If you got that feeling, you get out of there, because there's probably a reason. You know, God gave us some good features in our brain, and whenever there's something not right, we usually know it.
Yeah.
So just listen to it and follow it.
They say follow your gut. That's why it's in the front, right?
That's right. And hey, Roger and I we do this all the time, you know, especially up there close to the dams, or we go to a new area like the Mississippi or something. It's like, man, I don't feel safe here. Yeah. And we'll do things differently from there on out, you know, to get to where we do feel safe.
We worked up to that point. You know, we started with our dam, and we could only get so close. And when we did start traveling and going to these other places, we weren't immediately going right up into the crazy stuff and starting our bump there.
Nope.
We would start farther back, and then, you know, we got confident in what our abilities were. We got confident in what our equipment could handle. And eventually we got to the point where, hey, we can get right up in there, and this is where we're comfortable now. Now, like Zach said earlier, there's a point that actually the water is just boiling, right? You see these dams, the water's just turning. It's not really going anywhere. You're not going to bump. You're going to sit still on top of boiling water. But actually, if you go past it just a little bit farther, you guys have been talking about it here in chat, I'm watching, you run into dead water, and you'll see people, we've seen it too. People will tie their boats up to the dam. People will even get in the little cubbies back in the hole and push their sails back all the way back in them holes and drop baits in that completely dead, still water. Zach and I have sat on top of that stuff before and seen millions of fish. What kind of fish? It's a range. There's all kinds of activity there. We set up in that same scenario and drop baits. I've done it with bobcat as well, and we caught some catfish that way. Typically, when I see guys doing that, they're actually catching eaters, which is hard to believe, but they're at the dam and they're targeting small fish.
Most of those guys, now a lot of those guys, like what Roger's talking about, and Gunnersville is Nickajack Dam. That's one place that happened. We've seen that happen a lot, where those guys are up there and they're catching all these little small fish. Now, we pay attention to what they're using for bait. A lot of those guys, they're using small baits. They're using chicken livers. They're using, you know, the smaller stuff that's going to attract the smaller fish. So, you know, I think that's a big factor. And you talk to those guys, and they get broke off a lot too. So, you know, they're hooking into some big stuff occasionally. But, you know, like we always say, you don't want to catch a big fish, be ready to catch a big fish. You know, have the gear for it. So if you don't have the gear for it, you're not going to hook up. You're not going to get them in the boat. So
harder to be successful when you're not geared up for them, right?
That's right.
So one of the things that Zach mentioned earlier, and I kind of want to touch on real quick, is the fact that the water coming out of dams, it does not go in a straight line ever, right? Most of your dams are going to have, so this is just an image I found earlier. You know, your water coming over your dam, depending on what your dam setup is, you know, you're going to have turbulent water here, and you could come down and, you know, you may have humps or rocks and things. But if you look on the very outside edges of this illustration, you'll see these currents, the eddies. And if you watch Zach and I fish enough on live streams, you'll know that, you know, we're fishing. A lot of times we're sitting in current that's going downriver, but half the water is going upriver. It's going backwards. Or in some dam situations, like I go to Racine Dam, and it's like a toilet bowl. I mean, it comes out one side and it just makes a big turn, and it's just a big toilet bowl. The water goes round and round. So, you know, you have lots of different opportunities. You could sit backwards in these eddies. You could fish at the edge of these eddies, but the dam itself creates so much moving water that you know,
you have like all these. You know, it's not one condition like you are out. You know, you go down river 4 miles and you set up. It's one condition wherever you're setting. You get up here at the dam and you've got multiple conditions that you can throw to different, completely different things. Oh, over here, it's one of our favorite places to go. We've got current going backwards in the middle of the river. Smack in the middle of the river, it's going backwards towards the dam. And one of us will cast rods over there, and then opposite side of the boat, it's ripping. You got to put on 12-ounce weights and throw it to get it to even think about staying for a little bit, and eventually it ends up behind the boat too. But it's crazy up there what all these different conditions, and sometimes out there where it's going backwards is where all the fish are coming from, and then sometimes it's all coming from over here where the current's ripping. You just never know. We aren't. I don't know that much. I don't know that much anyway. But you think what's going. You go up there and tell us where the fish is going to come from every time. I bet you can't do it.
Yeah. They're always going to be positioned a little different, just depending.
Yeah, that's why it's so much fun up there. We have a blast. Going to any. We love going down the Tennessee River, and of course, our favorite place is Nickajack Dam. That's where we've caught our biggest fish, caught the most, and all that stuff. And there and Wheeler Dam is another good one that's we've just had an absolute ball. Of course, now Wheeler Dam, we've always had Doc there with us to point us in the right direction and hold our hand pretty much and get us going the direction we need to be going. So.
Jeremy,
Nickajack is a different story because we didn't have anybody down there showing us every move to make.
No, we figured it. That's one of the reasons why it was so gratifying is we kind of figured it out on our own. We didn't have anybody help us. We didn't have anybody point us
down there during the week. There's nobody there hardly at all, to get in your way, or you don't have to watch for other boats getting in your way or any of that kind of stuff. And that was our first trip there. That was an absolute blast, just because we had the opportunity to, it was like, all right, here we looked on our navionics like we always do. Is first thing you do, and we come up with game plans and tried things and just kept fine tuning everything until we got it down. Now when we go down there, we don't have to. It's not such a learning curve. Every time we go, we can go there and actually start fishing. So,
Becca has another. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'm trying to keep up with the chat here yet.
Away from dams. When do they stay away from dams? Actually, there are times like right now. Seems like we haven't been doing that well right at the dam itself. Right at the beginning of the spawn, it seems like they leave. The big ones do anyway. It's like and then it takes them a while to come back. I don't know if it's because of water temperature or what, because when you get close to a dam, that end of the river is shallower, and as you get closer to the next dam, it gradually gets deeper and deeper and deeper. So, this time of year, the water temperature's coming up, and the fish, they're just like us. They don't have air conditioning, but they want to go to where the cooler, environment's at. So they're going to go to the deeper water a lot of times. So
this
at
is
least during the heat of the day.
Great comment here from James Coolcats. Great point he puts out here is that just because the dam is running 45,000 doesn't mean the patterns are going to be the same. They can have different generators set up, or they can have, they might have different gates open at the dam. So
that's right.
One of the tools, we were going to talk about this as well, is one of the tools to use when thinking about fishing dams is knowing where to go to get your information for your flow, and where to get your information for your, river elevation. For most of the time, it's your National Weather Service, which I have here. I've got ours pulled up because it's always a one click away.
Exactly.
For me as well. But knowing where to go get these graphs at and where to get the flow rate will help give you a start on what to expect. I know Zach and I look at the flow probably every day, even though we're not fishing. We look at the flow every day to see what the river's doing, and we're constantly keeping up with what's going on.
We know if we see like 42,000 feet per second, we know that we can do certain types of fishing. There's certain things that we can and can't do. And there's times it's 300,000. And we know that, you know, it's going crazy. It's a crazy river, and, you know, the fish are going to be close to the banks and all that kind of stuff. But
Jeremy, you might be able to answer this because you've got so much different water than we do. But it does seem the water is shallower near the dams than it is, you know, farther downriver. Do you see that same thing down there, or is it? I thought
I do.
Hydro is like really deep.
Yeah, well, certain sections of it is. It has a lot to do with the design of the dam itself. You know, different types of dams move water differently. Some of them, the water has to fall from a big height and come down, like more of a weir type dam, a high head dam, something like that. Down here, we have more what's called low head dams, which means the water is actually passing kind of under the structure and then blowing up. And depending on how the outfall of the dam is designed, you may have shallow water right below the dam because you're not on actual natural riverbed right there. Right. You're actually in what's called the stilling basin. And I actually have, now this is the way my hydro is designed. And I think a lot of other hydros look like this under the surface. But I actually have a drawing. I had one ready that kind of explains what all that looks like.
Now, Zach and I have, go ahead.
As soon as it'll pull up, I guess it'll pull up eventually. Why is it not pulling up?
I don't know. I see it down there in the basement.
I know. Yeah,
timer thing.
I see it too. Okay, well, I'll tell you what. Let me stop sharing it, and I will share it again. I think he's right. It might have timed me out. Let's try this again. There we go. Come on.
Spinning. It's
Come
spinning.
On. Why? Oh, why? There we go. There we go. We've been being slow today, I tell you. Okay, so couple little things here. The big gray step that you see right here. Here's what's above the water. When you look at my hydro, and a lot of other hydros are designed just like this, then you've got this big shelf that's going to stick out under the water, and then you've got the actual face here, and you see the discharge of the turbines down here with these blue arrows. Now, this black line that's down low here and kicks up and then flattens out, that's concrete. That's actually your stilling basin, okay? And most of them are designed this way with this deep trough ahead of the turbines, and they're going to have something out in front of the turbines to break that current, slow that water down, and disrupt the flow. You could have one of two things, or in my case, I have both. You're going to have a ramp style break here that the current's going to hit. That's why you see the boiling on the surface ahead of the dam, and you're going to have a back current that's going to go back towards the dam. That means you have that feature at the bottom of that dam. You have this ramp section that breaks the current. Then after that, or maybe you just have that, but you're going to have these pillars, concrete pillars, blocks that stick up above the floor. Okay. And I know they got a fancy name for them. I can't think of what they are right now, but that is designed to break the current that's coming through and slow it down. Now, what you're looking at here, all these red dots that you see all over this drawing, these are likely locations where you're going to mark catfish, especially like in my situation, that's where I mark catfish. And you notice down there in this hole below that turbine, you see that big old red blob? That's the Volkswagen.
That's
the Volkswagen. And if anybody remembers when me and Gabe fought that massive fish for 2 hours on that live stream, guess where I was at? That's where that bait was, right there. So they do exist.
Now, Zach and I have seen exactly, it's almost similar. We're sitting in front of, I think we were Chickamauga, it might have been Nickajack. Might have been Gunnersville, but they were big pillars sticking up,
Yes.
Just great big walls, concrete walls sticking up right in front of the dams. Now, we weren't in front of the hydro, but we was in front of the dams. And they had, I'm guessing they'd be like some kind of breaker wall or something like that. But yeah, we've seen the exact same thing up close.
That's right. Now, every dam is going to have something in common. It may be different distance, it may be different width, maybe different depth, but they're all going to have one thing in common. At some point below that dam, the concrete for the stilling basin or revetment is going to stop. It's going to stop, and it's going to turn into a natural bottom. And what you are going to see at that point is exactly what I have drawn in brown. You're going to see it dive off into deeper water because now that current has eaten that away. Well, when you get a hole, guess what you have behind it? You're going to have a little hump, just like I show here. Then you're going to have another little hole. Then you're going to have a little hump. Well, guess where all these red dots are? And guess where these fish love to stage is behind these humps. Because as you can see by the blue arrow, the current is not horizontal anymore. Because it breaks, the current separates. You got some current going down, some current going straight. And guess what? That is just a conveyor belt for all those injured, dead bait fish, everything else that get fed right down to these bottoms of these ledges where these fish love to sit. But whether it's a hydro, a dam, or even just a weir, okay, and we didn't talk about weirs, which it is a type of dam. They're all going to have a similar structure type once you get past them. Once you get in that nice, straight, even flow, you're going to see things very similar to this. Now, you might not see the 30, 40-foot drops and holes that we do because of the aggressive current. You may see 2, 3-foot holes, but they're still there. You're still going to see those similar things no matter the design. Dam design affects what's right next to it, what structure you see very close to it. Once you get out in that main straight current, they're going to all very much look the same. So hopefully that kind of answered a couple of questions about kind of what typically what you see, why it's there, how they're made, things like that.
Catfish Broadcast Booth says tonight's sponsor is Crayola Crayon. Draw the world fish of your dreams.
Crayola, holla at your boy.
Bugman wants to know what you're using to hold your bait down there.
Well, what we used to use, in fact, I still have one on my desk right here. That's what I used to use right here. Okay, for those in the that build houses, electrical work.
Window weight?
No, this is 3/4 EMT conduit. This is 3/4 inch metal electrical conduit. This piece happens to be 10 inches long, and it is slap full of lead, full, top to bottom. In fact, there's a welding rod in the top that I'd hook my clip to. This thing is 34 ounces right here. I call these my wind chimes.
Your dad said that the 32 ounces wouldn't hold the bait down up to your guys' hydro.
There was one particular day we went in there in the spring, high water, flood conditions, an extreme amount of flow. I had these on my Big Cat Fever heavy rods 1,000 feet below the dam, mind you. 1,000 feet below the dam. I could not get these to touch bottom.
Whew.
Couldn't do it. And Sean T, if he's in chat, Sean T was with us when that happened. Could not get him to touch bottom. In fact, it was this weight I'm holding right here. It was this one. I couldn't get it to touch.
Welcome in JG Hill and David Hughes. Bill Hopper wants to know if it's better to use down scan or side scan when you're looking for fish below the dam. Depends on if you're looking for fish or structure.
Yes.
Yeah. The thing is, when you get below a dam, you've got all the air that gets in the water, and you have to like desensitize your down imaging or your 2D to even see anything, because man, there's where we go, like we was talking about how things change. You'll be looking at your side imaging and stuff, and everything's just fine. Then all of a sudden, it just like snow everywhere. It's because you're getting a bunch of that water, that's injected, it's got air in it, and it's all full of bubbles and stuff, and all of a sudden it changes. So if you really want to see, you're probably going to have to desensitize your down imaging or side imaging, either whatever one you're using. I keep all three up on one of my screens, and we use all three at the same time all the time. And then we've got one unit that's just got our mapping on it. That way you're not having to flip back and forth and stuff. But I mean, you really don't need when you get up close like that, using if you have to pick, go with a multiple screen, or multiple images on your screen. But the first thing I would get rid of would be my mapping. I think if I had to give up something, it'd be the mapping. Now, when we start doing our bumping, when we're bumping, man, I'm using my mapping more than anything. I can tell you right now, because we've already made that. Usually we'll bump the same pass like so many times. What the structure is down there, so it's not that important. But bumping up in that, Roger knows how it is, especially right there at Nickajack. We'll bump the same line a whole bunch of times. When we stop getting activity there, we're going to move. Hey, next time let's get over this way or that way, and we're watching our past, our history, of our passes that we made previous and stuff. And then at some point in the day, you have to get rid of that because it just gets so clobbered up you can't even see anything. You got to basically start over. But all you see is red lines everywhere.
Yeah, we have to delete our tracks after a while so we can see what the heck we're doing. Hey, there's Chris El Gato Azul TV. What's up, brother? I'm looking at my screen here because I'm getting pictures from the river, Tennessee River. Bobcat said he got tired of bumping, so he tied some rigs up and he started drifting. And Bobcat, if you were paying attention in chat, Bobcat a minute ago said, "I'll be right back. Fish on." Well, there you go. That's the fish. Good job, Bobcat. I love
that. That is the only acceptable excuse for leaving our chat is if you got a fish on. I just figured I'll throw that out there.
If you got
that is the only reason I will accept.
Took the time to write fish on.
Yes.
If you got time to write fish on, well, you can't do it with a bumping rod in your hand. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I'll bet he can. I'll bet he can bump and type at the same time.
Probably. I think he bumps in his sleep, to be honest with you.
What's up, Fishing in Favor? Stan Three's in the house, and John Parker's in the house.
Another little picture. I drew us another little picture kind of based on the question that I saw in chat a second ago about, trying to set up in the fast current and how we set up, and kind of maybe get a little visual on what Zach was talking about how we set up, why we're there, and kind of the different dynamics of it. I drew this one very quick, so y'all kind of have to bear with me on this one. I'm not an expert here. We've already gone over this, so if it'll cooperate with me and pull my screen up, why today of all days does it have to act this way?
I don't know
what is going on. Yes, share the screen. Thank you. Okay, there we go. Now it finally acts right. Okay, a lot going on in this picture. Very simple. The bigger the arrow, the stronger the current. Okay, so naturally, and I drew kind of what my hydro looks like, but typical dams, this is pretty much what you're going to see. And obviously, the brown line here is more of your main channel ledge, not really your bank. So keep that in mind too. Usually right about the point where your revetment or your stilling basin stops, not only because this is that same line right here. In fact, I can actually draw that line right about there. That's where your stilling basin about is going to stop. Not only does your channel get deeper at that point because it's now earth, it's going to get wider. It's going to eat out the banks because normally the stone revetment stops at this point also. Does for me, and I know it does for a lot of other dams too. So what you kind of get at that point is your water is slowing down a lot when it falls off on this ledge. And then you get this, what I call this peeling effect. Your ledge is getting wider, it's getting deeper. So you've got this slower water that starts peeling off towards either side. And that's kind of represented by these arrows here. But you've got this straight main current that's still wanting to rip through there. These two dashed lines that you see that I put in here, that is typically where you're going to see a nice current seam between your fast water and your slower water that's starting to peel off and make this nice big back current like Zach was talking about earlier. I could have drawn that a little bit better, but this is where all this is happening, is all right here, where it gets deeper and wider all at the same time. Now, an important thing to remember, I know these guys fight it. I know I fight it too. This dash line where this seam is, don't think it's going to stay in the same spot. It's going to constantly swing back and forth. And I'm talking, I know in my area, it can swing 20 feet side to side very easily. I'm constantly because I can't hold my boat in this fast current. It's not happening. There's no trolling motor on the market that's going to hold you in this fast stuff. But the problem is when you get in the slower stuff on this side, the problem is that current is not straight anymore. It's going to turn your boat. It's going to want to turn you in a circle. You have to be in that happy median where you've got fast water like on half of your boat. But to keep it there, you're going to love the jog function on a trolling motor because you're constantly back, forth, back and forth, back and forth. I don't even bother adjusting my rods because the current is fast enough. If that boat moves over 10 foot, them rods are going to swing right behind it. It's going to be behind the boat no matter what you do anyway.
In this situation, a lot of times, especially there's a time in the spring, it seems like where, I'll get over there to the side, but my boat's wanting to spin, and there is you ain't going to stop it.
Yeah.
At those times, especially in the spring, I'll suspend. I'll just put out 6 or 8 rods and suspend.
Heavy weights.
Absolutely.
And heavy, put 10-ounce weights and go straight down. And I'm telling you, man, you think, well, I can't fish it. Well, you can't cast, but you can suspend. And I'm telling you, I caught a ton of fish like that.
Yes,
and
100%, because it does not matter how many circles your boat turns if your baits ain't sitting on the bottom.
That's right.
Doesn't matter.
If you got 8, that's why we use these heavy weights doing that. Now we're only talking usually, in the spring when it's deep up there, 30 some feet or something. So it's not, you get deeper, you're talking 80 feet and stuff. You can't. You're just going to have to cut down on the number of rods because they're going to get wound up down there. Maybe 4 at the most when it's crazy. But that's an option, and that
you better believe it.
And what's cool when you're doing that, Roger and I can think of one instance especially. Roger and I were up there, and we just got bait suspended, and I'm watching the screen, and I said, Roger, get ready. I said, there's one coming up to check your bait out, and we saw it. I mean, it was just like, it was just, he took it, and it was a big one too.
That is amazing to actually see that on 2D sonar. That's amazing. We had the exact same thing happen to us this past Sunday when Dad and I were out. The second spot we fished, now it wasn't below a dam, but it was main current blowing by and an oxbow coming in with no current. And we were right there in the scene where the water just wants to turn crazy. Like, hey, there's fish down there. Let's set up on them, suspend, drop baits. And you could actually watch on 2D the mark come up. Then all of a sudden, boom, tips in the water. That is an amazing thing to see.
That's
that happens. That happens like 100 times, and they don't take the bait. When you're suspend drifting, it happens a lot. You see them come up and sniff it.
That's our poor man live scope there. That's his.
Yeah,
it makes us happy.
True though. Oh, that is so frustrating when you see that big mark. You see that big mark come up. You're like, oh, and then the big mark goes back down. You're like, come on.
You're what? And he stays with the boat, and you watch him. He goes down, and he's still going.
Keeps coming back up.
And he'll come back up and check out one of the other ones, and he just keeps doing that. It's frustrating at times.
I remember telling him on a live stream, they're like, well, we don't know how to set. I said, spot lock and drop the bait on his head. I'm like, and that's when Richard called his PB. It happened. Hit him in the head with it. Heck yeah.
Going back to safety here, one of the things I'll say is if there's so many awesome people in the community that if you are wanting to get into fishing dams, I would recommend finding somebody who is comfortable at dams. Try going out a couple of times with somebody that is comfortable and kind of could teach you or show you the ropes. We'll do the very best we can here on the channel to try to, give you visuals, but real experience is always going to be better. And, if you're local to our area and you want to go out, holler at us. We'd be more than happy to take somebody out and kind of show them how to safely, fish these areas and these waters. But if you're not in our area, reach out to somebody or holler at somebody. So I'm sure that anyone else would rather take the time and teach you and keep you safe than let you go out and fail.
Yeah, things can. I'm telling you, it is dangerous getting up close to a dam. It is, that's something. You know, like a brain surgeon, they don't start off doing brain surgery right off the bat. They start off easy, doing other things first, and work their way up to that. I'm not comparing this to brain surgery. I'm just using this as an analogy. But you know, work your way slowly up closer and closer, and get comfortable for all these conditions that you're going to see. And you know, that way you could, you know, like, man, next time I need to have a different piece of equipment, or, you know, I need this, I need that, or, you know, we talk about our trips all, you know, that's all we talk about pretty much is fishing anyway. But, you know, we, you know, today, you know, what I do, because I didn't talk to Roger last night after he got home from fishing. You know, I wanted to report, you know, on exactly what all happened, you know. All the particulars. And you know, we do the same thing, man. We load the boat up when we're on trips, especially, and you know, all the way back to the room and at dinner that night and stuff. It's like, you know, what could we have done different, and things like that. So you know, you need to do the same thing on your trips out on the river, and it helps to have somebody to you know, bang ideas back and forth.
So Stan 3 asks, is it more or less sonar for air bladders and structure scan for hard surfaces? And I got to admit that I don't know the answer as far as 2D traditional sonar, if it's actual air bladders returns is what we're getting or not. I don't know that to be true. I don't know it to be false either. I'm saying I don't know. I could tell you that, you know, when it comes to marking fish, usually traditional 2D sonar is going to be our more trusted source for marking fish, because on the traditional 2D sonar, we can see the hardness of the fish, right? So we could easily tell whether
we can tell we're getting up. I mean, whenever it's, I mean, I've heard a lot of people say a lot of different things, but when we see something with like carp, they show up completely different than catfish. They do. Whether now, is it because the air bladder is different or their head structure? I don't know, but I can tell you the catfish. If you want to know how big the catfish is, how thick. It's how thick that return is on 2D. Now, is it a thick one and it's showing that it's not the hardest to return? That's 99% of the time, that's catfish, you know, because it's a softer return. Now, when I see that color for a hard return, and there's a lot of that color on my, because everybody's colors are different, but on mine, red is hard. And if I see a lot of red in it, from the front to the back, especially on the arch, it's probably not a catfish. Now, a little bit of red, you're going to get red on everything, but it's just on the catfish, it seems like you don't get as much of that hard color showing up. So
what we do a lot is we will use our side scan, and we may see fish off to one side or the other, and we might either just go over and try to, you know, spot it, or drop a waypoint on it and then come back over and then scan it. So we mark a bunch of fish off one side above the other. We might circle back around and run over them with the 2D to see those. What's that? So yesterday when we was out with Eric and them, you know, there was a deep hole. There's 55-foot hole out in the middle of nowhere. Yeah, so we went and checked the hole. Sometimes it's always got fish in it. Sometimes it's catfish. Sometimes it's other species of fish. Yesterday it was completely full. I mean, full of big, thick, hard fish. And unfortunately, our area is taking on Asian carp now. And we're not used to seeing Asian carp on graph, but we have seen Asian carp in Mississippi waters. And to me, it looked like we had Asian carp laying in that hole, occupying that, you know, that hole. I don't know for sure, but they were big, big marks, and they were on Garmin. Yellow is hard, and they were yellow top to bottom. We use
a lot of times on the 2D or on the down imaging on my unit, we use that because, you know, if you go slow enough, you can get an actual picture of the fish. You can see the outline, and same thing on side imaging. You know, we can a lot of times we can see the actual fish. I mean, you can see the shape of the tail and everything, you know, when the water's clear. Now, when the water's muddy and murky and all that stuff, things don't show up as good.
Right.
But, you know, you don't just go by what you see. You know, you're looking at the conditions and the locations, where the fish are at in the water column. You factor all that stuff in, and Sometimes you can see, well, like I said, when that water's clear and you can see stuff on your down imaging and on your side imaging, you know for sure, you know what that fish is. But that is those times are few and far between. It's always a guess. Most of the time it's a guess. Now, it's an educated guess a lot of times, but still, the location
sometimes
where
Go ahead. I'm sorry about that.
I was just going to say a lot of times it's the location, hey, I'm expecting, just because of the location, like what Jeremy just drew there, we got these little dips or whatever, I'm expecting to see certain things there. And if I see that and I look over on my 2D and I see the right color and so forth, it's probably more than likely that's a catfish or that's not a catfish. Like Roger yesterday, I know the exact spot he's talking about. And if you've seen big fish in there and they have a lot of red on them, they're not a catfish.
It is definitely something else.
You've already got expectations. You already know what to expect and so forth. So
sonar frequency is basically and I'm going to geek out on surveying stuff here for a second because we fooled with all this stuff, years ago. Sonar is a lot of why you're getting certain returns is based on density. It is the density of the object that the sonar waves are hitting. And depending on what frequency you're using is how it reacts to something that's dense. Concrete, hard things, they're very dense. They reflect almost all of the signal right back to you. Well, the more signal you get reflected back, that's a harder return. That's why we call it a return, because that's how much signal is getting returned back to the transducer.
It's a reflected signal. That's what it is.
The softer something is, the less dense something is, the more signal it absorbs instead of reflecting back. And you see a softer signature because it's literally less dense, softer material. You think of an Asian carp or a big gar, big common carp, hard shell on the outside. There is nothing penetrating that. It's going to shoot it right back to you. Hard return. A catfish, it's doesn't have that hard outer shell. There's no scales. It's skin. It's going to absorb more of the sonar signal. So you see that softer signature, but you're going to see that little harder return towards the head because they got that big old skull. And the air bladder is a hard return because it's air, it's space. It actually reflects back as a hard return. Now, when you're dealing with down scan, side scan, the higher frequencies and the way the processor reads it, you're seeing a different type of image, but it's still sonar absorption just from a different frequency standpoint.
It's a more processed return is what it is.
Yes.
It's not
100%.
It's not like raw. When you're looking at 2D, it's more raw image more it's not completely raw anymore because it is processed, but your down imaging and your side imaging it's processed, so you're going to see more of an outline and things like that.
Believe it or not, Kentucky Redneck, I can tell you exactly what a small shark looks like on sonar. I can tell you exactly what they look like because it's a slightly softer return than what you would typically see of a catfish. If you'd ever seen spoonbill, paddlefish on sonar, they look just like them, except not quite as thick of an arch. But it's a slightly softer return than a catfish.
On 2D, I can't tell the difference between a spoonbill and catfish.
I can. I've done it so much.
We have them down this one area we go to in the summer, and there's like one depth, and it's like in the middle of the water column. Those spoonbill like to run that depth, and I used to drift that all the time, and I was like, man, what is going on here? I've got these fish. It's water's 40 foot deep, and at 23 feet, I've got these giant, look like catfish. And finally, I figured out what it was. But they look just like, to me, they look just like a catfish on the 2D.
It's close. It's very close. You got to really, really have your stuff dialed in and just really trust what you're looking at to be confident that it's spoonbill and not catfish. And a lot of that, like you said, is where they are in the water column gives you that clue as well.
Well, we started getting the better units and stuff, and then like on our 2D and site, you can see on the down imaging and on the side imaging, you can see it's a spoonbill because I mean it looks just like spoonbill, you know.
Stan 3 remembers the fish we saw up there on the James, that giant side image that we got. That's we could see every fin. We could see his gut hanging. This was a giant.
It was probably it was like a freaking state record, probably blue cat, and we got it on side imaging. I mean, it was a giant, and it was a picture. I mean, we took a picture of it and kept it, and we drug baits. We drug baits over that thing, and it was in shallow water too. We drug baits and drug baits and drug baits, and never did catch it.
Oh man!
If I'm not wrong, we were in like 5 or 6 foot of water.
Yeah, it was shallow.
Oh wow!
There was a little channel through there. It was like 7 foot, or 7.5, and we were in the channel, which was really narrow. But this thing was over in the shallow stuff.
Yeah, he was in 3-4 foot of water. Probably.
It's funny.
You start dragging over there.
You could have almost seen like the wake of him moving through. You know, shallow enough water. That's crazy. Oh
yeah,
man.
There was a lot of big fish in that area. Well, I'm ready to go back.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, every trip we take, every dam we fish, you just add more knowledge and more, tools to your tool belt. Yep. And, you just keep putting things together. And that's why, shows like this and folks like,
I'll be right back.
Chris Souders, Chris went live last night after we missed it. We was on our way in, but Chris went live last night and on 10 tips on how to have a perfect drift. And, guys like him and many of us that just want to share and help people out, then that takes a little bit of the time. People say time on the water. Well, if the guy's spending a lot of time on the water or sharing what they're learning, then that's going to help you guys, all of us get just a little bit better, a little bit faster.
Yeah, it helps out with that learning curve a lot, because look, if you have to learn absolutely everything all by yourself, it's going to take a lot of time. It will, and I can speak for myself that 99% of what I know about trophy catfishing, it comes from YouTube. It comes because I did not know it existed before YouTube. I didn't know it was a such thing. So everything I know was learned and adapted from something I picked up from somebody else on YouTube. Now I had to make it work for me, make adjustments and things like that based on my conditions, but the basic knowledge is still there.
Warpig, I have not fished the Kentucky Dam. I fished it for a skipjack from the bank, but I've never had a boat up there.
Yep.
But welcome, Monty.
What's going on, brother?
I think we stayed on track. I kept these screens open just so I would remind myself what things to talk about. Of course, Zach kind of kicked us off early with the safety. And, we'll touch on it again. Just beware of what your restricted zones are, fishing dams. And Bobcat put it in here earlier, but dams are to be respected. Take your time, respect the water. And there are lots of advantages of fishing dams. The activity level, certain times of the year, that's the best place on the river to be.
Yeah, I mean, we've done a couple tournaments and, we where we like to go. We like to get to the nearest dam and, do our thing there when the opportunity comes up.
Yeah. I mean, for us, it's everything right now because our water is so hot down here. I've got water in the Atchafalaya River in the fast current that's still 91, 92 degrees. Okay. It is insane. Goodness. Oh, it's insane. But when I go to the hydro, which is pulling water off of the Mississippi, it's mid 80s and it's even more oxygenated because of being stirred up. Like you said earlier, these past couple of trips, that has literally made the difference between us catching fish or not. The fish are in that cooler, more oxygenated water. That's
what's making me think the dams should be perfect right now. The water is coming. So we're saying the fish are deep. The fish are going deep. They're looking for cooler water. Well, where's the water from the hydro and the dam coming from? It's coming from the deep. It's coming from the bottom.
That's right.
So that water coming out of the dam right now should be cooler than what you're getting surface temperatures are on the top of the lake or downriver.
Should be.
So to me, it makes only good sense that the dams right now should be heating up. Talking about fish bite, not temperature. Because the water coming through there, it should be cooler coming off the bottom of the lake or river.
Exactly. It should be. Now, I'm seeing a 6-7 degree water temperature difference, but that's because my dam is pulling water off an entirely different river and dumping into it. It's a little bit of a unique situation on my part, but like I said, you're still the only water out of a dam that wouldn't be extremely cooler is a high head dam or a weir, because the water is just hitting the wall and you're getting spillage over the top. But you're still aerating that water. Even though it may not be hardly any cooler, you're still aerating it. The fish are still going to prefer that environment to simply just water. Even though it's a slow current, it's still much more aerated.
Well, it's still also being evaporated, and evaporation is cooling.
Yep.
I'm not sure who we got from Facebook user here, but they said the water below Wheeler is 94 degrees.
Ooh, oh my Lord.
That's crazy.
That just made me want to fish Wheeler less right now.
Yeah.
It's Doc. What's up, Doc?
Oh, is it, Doc? What's going on, Doc?
Doc Lang, what's up, buddy? He says it's below 94 degrees. That makes me not want to go. Now, Wilson is pretty deep, so I'm guessing, Doc, correct me if I'm wrong, but dragging 50 foot plus right now would probably be my go-to method.
Yep.
They might have a thermocline down there towards the dam, though. Remember, you and I saw it in October at one time.
It's possible.
Yeah, down on the far end, we actually saw a thermocline down there. We actually had to call Doc and ask him, like, is it possible to have a thermocline at 90 feet or 80, whatever I know we was in some really deep water.
I think we took a picture and sent him. He says, yeah, it's thermocline.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, he's right. You got to stay an eighth of a mile below in the dams.
He said they're shallow, less than 15 foot.
That is exact opposite of what I would have thought. What in the world?
Interesting.
Doc, I might have to call you tomorrow. That doesn't make sense.
I'd be curious to know why. Like, what situation is happening that those fish prefer to be at that depth versus deep? I know us right now, the pattern. Now, my pattern isn't the super deep water. We're not seeing them in the 80, 90, 100, 110 foot. We're seeing them in the 40, 50 foot, which is mid-depth for me. But that's below the dam, though. But they're not in that 80-foot stuff down below the dam. They're closer in that mid-range. Go figure.
That's interesting. That's 94 degree surface temperature. I would think they'd want to get farther away. I know
that's crazy.
I don't see bait really even wanting to be up in that water.
I will say this. The other day, keep going back to that Sunday we fished. We went slicker fishing before we went catfishing. Dad and I caught 97 in about an hour and a half, but we caught them in that 92 degree water on a big mud line. They were in there blowing up like I've never seen them blow up before. Did not mark a single predator fish anywhere near them. There was no catfish on the bottom, no big alligator gar, no nothing. And that's probably one of the first times I've ever seen that.
Yeah, he's saying massive pods at that.
Paula Smith is on here. Hey, Paula.
Paula Smith. Paula. Better late than never. Actually, I just realized what time it was.
We've been rolling.
We went over an hour. But the conversation's been good. We've had a lot of comments and chat and, topics. Dams is just one of the things we're passionate about. It was easy to talk about tonight. Jeremy, you got anything else to add?
No, I think we're pretty good. I mean, I've been having some good conversations with some people fishing all around, and there's a lot of big fish being caught right now. I find big fish are being caught a little earlier than I normally hear about them being caught, which I'm getting pretty excited about. So we'll just have to see. We got a big old tournament going on just north of me, and I got a couple buddies fishing in it. We're gonna see how that happens. Very curious to hear back on that one.
That's a big money tournament, isn't it?
Yeah, big money up there in Vicksburg. I'm very curious to see how our friend Adam Cook does in that tournament.
Yeah, there we go. I like Adam. I'll root for Adam any day.
Yes,
he did well last year, didn't it? It's the same. He did this last year, didn't he?
I think he comes fished that one every year. I can't remember the name of it, but I think it's got like big bucks or something in the name of it. I can't remember.
He did it last year.
Mega that's bucks. That's it. Yeah, that's
Mega
it.
Bucks. Paula Smith says early morning bite here, and we're kind of seeing the same here. We've we're catching fish throughout the daytime. We just haven't been catching large fish. We caught a lot of fish yesterday. We just didn't get any real good size to them. Are you going to the Smoky Mountain Expo? Oh, that's for Paula. I'd like to go to that. I just don't think I'm going to make it this year. So, well, guys, I think we're
I got to get to bed.
I know. Yep, I know it's past Zach's bedtime. Jeremy's got to get up early in the morning, and I got to get up early as well. So we're going to wrap things up here and call it a night. Be tuned in for whatever we come up with next week. I don't know if we can get Brad back on the show. We got something else lined up for you, but we'll put something together. That's for sure.
Oh yeah.
But until then, you guys stay safe, and we'll see you next week. Same cat time, same cat channel. We'll catch you on the next cast. Good night, everybody.
Hey, everybody.